I guess I don't know. We just probably just get started right now. Well,
Yeah.
for everybody here, my name is Jamar Taylor, but most people will know me by Jammers. As you can see, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi. Just now starting to walk into my purpose. Myself and Dr. Moriel McDuffy, I've been talking for a little over 2.5 years, like little small conversations here and there about like mental health and um, just like a lot of different things. Started out with speaking in reference to blackmail, how we aren't really open to speak about our emotions and holding anger in, and how that you know correlates to us in violent areas and bad relationships, things of that nature. So over the past year and a half, I actually started seeing a therapist myself, and come to find out from what the therapist was telling me, I suffer from PTSD from coming from the inner city, and things that I've seen, my upbringing. My father was a functioning alcoholic. Just certain things, always in and out of rehab here and there, but he was always a dad to me. I witnessed a lot emotionally. Growing up, being like where I'm from is always told like, yo, suck it up, stop crying, stop acting like a girl, yada yada yada. When I'm telling people how I feel, that was often looked down upon. And when I had this real conversation with Dr. McDuffy one day, and it was like, yo, dog, that's normal. Like, so I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So you know what I mean? And from there, we just started talking about other things and family and relationships. He helped me through a lot of situations when I was going through certain stuff with my wife. And from there, me and my wife went to marriage counseling. So I was just sitting down talking to him around June, and I'm like, look, man, I really want to focus on trying to do some things through my frat, and with this mental health awareness, to try to get it out there and maybe help more men open up, especially men of our, like African American men of color, because we don't really talk as much as we should in reference to a lot of things. And a simple conversation can really, like, legit save a life, change your mood for the day, things of that nature. So that leads us to here. Mr. Dr. McDuffy is just, he's a remarkable guy, and I just linked up with him like, look, how about you speak in reference to all the things on topic? I got the gift to bring people together. So that leads us here. So with further ado, my guy, Mr. Moriel McDuffy.
How's everybody doing today? I hope that it's going well for you. So I just want to drop a couple of facts on you first, right? And I want to about men, right? And really, so the first fact is that men are more likely than women to die prematurely, and that's regardless of background, meaning regardless of how much money you make, regardless of your ethnicity, of your race, we're more likely to die, right? So that's across every man, right? So according to the CDC, right, the average life expectancy overall for all Americans is 77.8 years, right? For men, 75.1 years, and women, 80.5 years. So I just want to point out that for women, that's 5 years more than men on average, right? On average. All right. So that's just everybody. So I'm going to break it down a little further, just so we get an understanding, right? So if we're looking at this and we look at Latino men, the average is 79.9. So it's a little higher than the regular. Women are 83.3 years. You know what I mean? That's the average, if they're born today, how long, on average they live, 83.3 years, which is above the average. And men are 76.1. So it's still like a little gap, right, between the men and women. If you look at white men, right, the average is 78 years, right? The average life expectancy is 78 years, 80.6 for women, and for men, 75.5. Still a gap, right? But here's the kicker. And if you're Black, the total is 72 years. So we're a good 6 years below the average. As African Americans, you're 6 years below the average. Women 75.8, men 68.3, right? And this reminds me of a discussion that I had with a guy who grew up in the same neighborhood. I'm about 5 years younger, right? So we had a discussion and he said, I don't really know any men in my family. This is an African-American young man who lived past their 50s, early 60s, right? So when you're looking at averages and you're looking at numbers, you know, there has to be a number of people below the average and above the average to even get that number, right? So when we look at 68, a lot of people are dying at 60, 62, 61, right? You look at 80, people are dying at 70, 71, 72. So, you know, why is this and what it means is that we're not taking care of ourselves good enough, right? And we can look at it from a health perspective and say, well, men don't go to the doctor enough, right? But even that falls into an emotional category, because sometimes you don't go to the doctor because you may not want to know the answer to what's going on. You may be emotionally overwhelmed with what's going on at work, right? You may have trust issues because of an experience that happened that you put down so deep and don't want to deal with. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't go to doctors, and some of them are emotional. Some of them have nothing to do with just not taking care of yourself. Is, you know, there's emotional reasons that you don't want to deal with. So another fact, men in minority groups and low income lives are substantially reduced. And we just demonstrate that with the numbers that I gave you, that we have women generally outlive men by, on an average, about 5 years, right? But once you get to minority groups, those numbers are lower, right? Generally lower. Men are more likely to use alcohol to cope than women. And men are more likely to abuse substances than women. So when you look at all these things, right? Me as a mental health provider, as a therapist, I think about people trying to cope. That's what I think about, trying to cope, right? Now, obviously, we're talking about abusing alcohol, abusing substances, right? We're not talking about like leisurely drinking, right? We're talking about people that drink to cope when things happen, things they can't deal with, emotions that are overwhelming. So they try to drown them out. They try to self-medicate with marijuana, right? And I see this all the time. And I talk to people about it. And usually, you know, somebody who's slightly aware, or you can make them aware, they say, yeah, I am kind of self-medicating, because you don't want to think about this thing that's emotionally upsetting to you, right? So what is masculinity? Right? And when you look at masculinity, masculinity is the qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men, right? It's how we are socialized as men, what we're taught, right? And how we're taught to behave, right? It's like man law, right? People say man law, right? It's literally what we're taught to do, right? When you go into a bathroom and there's 3 stalls, you never use the one in the middle, you use the one outside, on the left, or the right, right? You keep your eyes against the wall, you don't look down. Because if you look down, that means there could be a problem, right? Somebody's gonna be upset, your feelings gonna be hurt, right? Man law, right? We know, we're taught these things, right? Like, listen, so, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that we're taught to do, right? We know even if there's a couch, you don't sit all elbow to elbow with a dude unless you have to, right? You sit on that and I sit on this thing. We're good, right? So I'm just going to put out there some things, right? Some statements. And I heard Jamar say some of them in the beginning, right? And I just want to put them out there so that we can get it. Let's just look at them, take a look at them, right? So suck it up, man up, don't cry, don't be soft, be in control, win, be a provider, be a breadwinner, be a leader, be tough, don't show pain, and don't rely on anybody, right? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? So when you hear all these statements, right, how do you live up to that? How does anybody live up to all of that? And then not only how do they live up to that, these are statements that program the way you think about things, right? Now, anybody who's ever heard of cognitive behavioral therapy knows that you're linking how you think to what your behaviors are, because how you think literally affects what you do, right? And I'll give you an example. Suck it up, right? Suck it up. Your mom dies. You go to a funeral. I'm a man, I need to suck it up. So I'm not supposed to cry. Now you hold that crying in, right? But when you go home, you're so frustrated that you can't do your work. Now it's affecting your sleep because you didn't release. You refuse to release. You refuse to cry at the funeral. You refuse to grieve. You refuse to do what you need to do. And when it comes back to you, now you got issues sleeping. Now I have issues doing work. Now I'm having issues in my relationship because emotionally I'm exhausted, but I can't say I'm exhausted because I got to suck it up, because I got to man up, because I can't cry, right? I don't want to come off soft. I can't be weak. So as you have all these thoughts, they're dictating your behaviors and you're doing things that are not healthy. They're not healthy for you. So that's one of the things with when we're talking about masculinity and mental health and how it affects us long term, or how it affects us, how it can hurt our mental health. That's how it affects the way we think about things. And we think about things wrong. Now we cause ourselves this pain. Sometimes just changing the way you think about a thing actually helps you to avoid things. So let's look at this. As we teach, because we're teaching men to put their emotions away. You come up as a boy, you're taught, don't be soft, be tough. Everything goes right. And then all of a sudden you're an adult one day and you break up from a relationship. You get divorced. You have a child and now you're splitting up and now you're wondering about that relationship. You got anxiety but now you don't know how to deal with those emotions. You've never been taught. See, women, they learn from an early age, they acknowledge, right? And they work on their emotions, right? And the reality of it is men, oftentimes we push it away, we're avoidant, right? And we'll get into that a little bit. So being avoidant puts us in a space where we don't really know how to deal with it. When we run into a tough time where we have to deal with it. Being avoidant can work sometimes, but it puts us in a tough space. So let me go back and give another example, right? Men in traditional society, right? We're the provider. We have to be that provider. Some people are so caught up in being a provider. I've had people come into my office and, they're caught up in the provider, right? And they're like, but what happens when you can't make enough money to be a provider? What happens if you get laid off your job, right? What happens if you just don't have enough money to make this happen, right? It goes back, there's other thoughts. Don't depend on anybody. So now you're not going to take money from your girlfriend, or you're going to feel bad about taking money from your girlfriend. You're going to feel bad about having to borrow money. So these things cause mental health issues. It's the thought of it, right? Now, if we're able to process our emotions and look at it objectively and use our supports, what happens? We realize in the 1950s and 1940s, 1930s, one salary was good enough, right? We realized that. But in 2021, one salary is you got a long way to go. For a family, you need two salaries, right? At least a minimum 1.5. Somebody working part-time, minimum, right? Unless you're making, 200, 6 figures plus, then you're going to need two salaries and you're going to have help, right? For a family. So sometimes this is how masculinity hurts us, how we think about things, and those rules can hurt us, right? I'm not telling you, and I want us to be aware of this. This is what I want to acknowledge early, is that we men are going to process emotions, and it may look different from women. It may look different, and even two different men, it may look different. This person may process one way, the other person may process another way. But it doesn't have to be. If you're not touchy-feely, if you feel like certain things are beyond you, it doesn't have to be like that, right? It doesn't have to be in a way that anybody else imagines, except for you, as long as you're dealing with your emotions and it works for you. Everybody has a different process. Some people cry. Some people sit by themselves, go inside and process, and then they get feedback from trusted friends. Some people go to therapy. Some people exercise or walk and they think about it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to process your emotions, but it may not look different for everybody. It may not look the same for everybody.
Hey, we got a few comments in the chat. Someone said that all those statements place tremendous pressure on men amongst other pressures we already have to deal with within society.
Absolutely.
Also, Ray, he stated that he does cry. Crying cleanses the soul. I'm still actually trying to learn how to cry. I don't really, I guess it's been so long, I'm just always been like this super tough guy, and like who I am now is totally different than the person I was years ago. So I definitely, I commend you on that, Ray, to even, put that out there, because that's something I'm working on myself.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, listen, it's something I have to work on. I recognize certain things in my stuff, right? and it's the way I was brought up, right? I wrestled, I played football, like, and wrestling, there's literally dudes, but like they would blow their knee out and they would like wheelchair in and wrestle. Like that was like the culture of it. Like it was dudes. I remember a kid was getting clowned when I was coaching because they said the guy came in on crutches, put him down and beat you. Like you had to be tough. You were taught to be tough, right? Like guys would take their forearm and rub them across your nose and make your nose bleed, and you're supposed to eat that. That's supposed to be like a morning snack. Seriously, like this is so when you're into that culture and you're raised like that, and this is how it is hard to do that, but that's okay. You don't have to do that. Maybe it looks different for you, right? Maybe it looks different. Processing your emotions looks different than some people can actually go and hey cry, and we have to just accept that whatever that process is for you, that it's going, and it works. As long as it works for you, then you're good. That's the main thing. So when we're talking about masculinity, right? I know you guys heard of toxic masculinity, right? And I don't know that I like the terminology. However, when we're talking about masculinity that can hurt your mental health, toxic masculinity can't, right? So when we say toxic, what are we talking about? And I'm talking about extreme masculinity, right? Things that are extreme, right? If you think about it, right? Every religion in the world on its face, when you actually really read about it, are okay. They don't tell you to go mass kill people, right? But there's always these people in the name of religion, whether it's Christian or Muslim or whatever, they got to kill hordes of people, right? They got to take over this place and that place. It's extreme. So masculinity can be the same way, right? When we're talking about extreme, if you feel like you have to dominate everything, right? If you're taught to dominate, everything has to be about domination, right? Everything has to be about aggression. When you become that one-trick pony of aggression, where it's intimidation or verbal aggression, or everything that you do is that way, it becomes extreme. And the reality is, as you try to dominate people, as you become aggressive, you build enemies. And as you build enemies, if times get tough, you don't have those supports to use, right? Not only do you not have those supports to use, you have some foes that you got to deal with now when you're in your time of crisis. When you're emotionally callous, meaning that you don't consider other people's emotions, right? And we know that happens, especially in like the work world, right? We know that happens all the time. But all these things are kind of extreme, right? When you can't show emotion, when you have to push the emotion down, and you have to be avoidant of emotion, all these things backfire, and they're toxic, right? Not only are they toxic, when you get in your time of difficulty, you won't know how to handle the emotion yourself. So anybody who you worked with and you essentially pushed down or avoided or did wrong, now you're in that situation yourself and you have to figure it out. And most people don't know what to do. A lot of it with us, with men now, is because of the way, you were raised, you came up, and things were a little bit different. Now some people realize they don't know how to deal with their emotions because they never had to do it. They never did it. So when we're talking, basically emotion is inevitable, right? So when we're talking about emotion being inevitable, right? We know that there are certain things that men think. And I think I went through a few of them, right? And let me share my screen with you right now real quick. I just want to share my screen with you. If I can figure this out. So, men processing emotion, right? We're talking about men processing emotion. Oftentimes what we do is we have emotional mismanagement, meaning that things happen and we decide that we're going to avoid, right? So there are places that avoiding emotion is functional, right? If you want to talk about work, when you're at work, but you came in, you're fresh off an argument with your wife, something happened at home, you found your mom or a loved one is sick and in the hospital, then we know when that happens, right? We know that that it's okay to push the emotion down temporarily so that we can be efficient at work. That's functional. When we're in sports, when we play sports, we know that sports are really about winning the game, but they're also about fighting through and being resilient. So we know that during the game, when things happen, you have to be resilient enough to come back, right? And there is a bit of rah-rah and yelling, and that's whether it's men's sports or female sports. So you got to push through, right? You got to push through. It's functional. When is it dysfunctional, right? It's dysfunctional. Avoidance is dysfunctional when we have relationships, right? Your wife has been trying to talk to you about this issue, or your girl's been trying to talk to you about this issue for months, and all you do is avoid it, right? You say things to try to not only avoid the issue, but to avoid just having a conversation, right? So the issue never gets resolved. Or you see an issue that you want to address, but you don't want to address it because you don't want to deal with all the emotion that's going to cause her, right? That you believe is going to cause her. When the reality is you have just as much emotion going through your veins, but you won't acknowledge it, right? So we know that men and women basically both have emotions. And it's not so much that women have that much more than us. What it is we handle it differently, right? Where women spend their whole lifetime acknowledging emotions, men do not generally. So we know that with them not acknowledging it, I'm sorry, I'm letting people in while I'm talking. So while they're not acknowledging it, oh wow, my screen froze. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I want to stop sharing because my screen froze.
While you picking that up, Bashawn made a comment. It's dysfunctional when you become dismissive to try and avoid conflict in a relationship.
Absolutely.
It's actually big, yeah.
Absolutely. What can you see, Jamar, on the screen? You see, am I still sharing my screen or not?
No, not at all. Nope.
All right, because I don't know what's going on, but I have this hooked up to a larger screen. My computer's on a larger screen, and it just like froze. So give me a second.
I apologize. I think this was Bashawn also. Egos are roadblocks to letting out emotions. I will tell you, being married, I've actually been with my wife since 2002. It's been times where I've been out and about amongst friends, like partying or whatever. And, during my younger days, just, especially in college, what have you, and a little after college, just the things that I was dealing with within life, like, I would just somehow lash out doing, some ridiculous things amongst other people, like taking my anger out from my home life, taking my anger out from the neighborhood, out on other people. And that was like extremely toxic. Even, like within the workforce, certain things that would happen at work. It's kind of weird because you know that you can't channel your anger the way you really want to in certain areas, but yet when you in other places, like, it's just hard for you to control it. And at that point, I can say, like, I used to struggle with controlling emotions until to be honest, like, I literally started seeing a therapist and learned how to, do certain things. It was at one point I had people telling me I may need to be on medication for, like, my anger and things of that nature, but I know that wasn't, that wasn't the way I was trying to go. So a lot of prayer, just staying focused within myself, opening up. It's a lot of people, a few guys on here that I actually speak with about real life situations all the time that most men wouldn't feel comfortable talking about at all. Whether it's been financial situations, issues I've had with my wife, or something that I may have going on with my son. I may need to talk to certain people to see, like, how they would handle, raising a 12-year-old, or like what they would do in this situation. Also, believe it or not, well, not even believe it or not, but by the grace of God, I actually talk about, like, religion a lot lately. It's just like where I'm at in life and my path, and like the way I'm walking, which is, I think it's just a good thing. And I really believe that us as men really should start talking more, like expressing yourself more. Just because I have an issue with you, it doesn't mean that I have to like hate you or we have to fight or, just wild out on each other. It's just a simple conversation. I'm letting you know how I feel. It is what it is. And we build from there. Anybody else willing to like to share, or like maybe you're in a space right now, maybe you saw this on LinkedIn or somewhere on social media, and it was a trigger to you that, okay, you were looking for something like this to discuss, and like, maybe this is, I don't.
Jamar, yeah, I definitely want to share. What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. This is Bashawn Dixon. So yeah, I one of the biggest things with me growing up is really, not allowing my significant other, if I was in a relationship, or if I was dealing with a particular woman, to allow what they say to impact my emotions. If you're married and you get into a dispute or a debate with your wife, or arguing with your wife or your girlfriend, what they say definitely it matters to us, because we love them, we care for them, we have emotions and a connection with them in a bond. So I know in my past experiences, women have said certain things because they knew they were going to get a reaction out of me. They knew that they were going to poke. They knew they were going to say certain things that's going to ignite me. Believe it or not, and we all can probably admit this, is that anytime we're in a relationship or we're dating someone, they tend to study us. So any type of nuances that causes us to react, or certain things that they say causes us to react, for me, it's been a challenge to handle my emotions, not to raise my voice, not to get frustrated based off of the little things that they would poke at me or say certain things to get under my skin. And one of my big time goals, and I think it's a lifelong process, is mastering my emotions, not allowing my girlfriend or my wife, my future wife, whoever it is, allow them to control my temperature. I kind of think of the analogy of a thermostat when it comes to my emotions, and I want to be able to be in control of my thermostat to be able to dictate the temperature, not allow the words from my lady or my wife to dictate the temperature. And a lot of times they do that, and it's not purposeful. It's just in the heat of the moment or the heat of the battle. Growing up for me, I never had, my father wasn't in my life. My grandfather raised me, but he kind of was like, be tough. It's tons of women out here, you too, like all those statements that was said earlier, you too big for that. You got a good career. Kind of pretty much wanted me to be dismissive to my emotions. And it's actually impacted me now that I'm 43 years old. It's impacted me now even more, because now I have more of a conscience and I'm more in tune with my mental health. But I just sit back and think back, man, I never really addressed a lot of these things with, handling my emotions. And this is awesome, this forum, as far as us as brothers coming together, man, and really talking about and being open, because that masculinity is amongst us. A lot of times I don't talk to my homies about their relationships and their wives, but we talk about, it's ladies out in the club tonight, this and that. And as we're getting older, that becomes very watered down. Like that's not really substance as we get older and get more intelligent. So I think opening up the avenue to talk about how these emotions impact us primarily in relationships and in marriages is really key. So this forum is excellent. But I know one of the things that I want to focus on is mastering my emotions, not allowing certain things to take me left, to take me right, to be able to know how to handle my lady in a relationship, to be soft-spoken, to be able to control my emotions. But then also, if she's taking it to that level, cursing and screaming, I want to be comfortable enough to be able to channel her emotions in another direction as well. So
there was a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Question posed.
You good.
What are things that you can do? What are things that you think you could do that could help with controlling emotions?
Yeah, you're asking me.
I think that may have been a question posed to Bashawn.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The therapy route is very important. I think also positive quotes. I'm a very spiritual man, so praying is definitely something that's in tune. Yeah. Getting into scriptures. Also, role playing. Being able to possibly do some role playing to really put myself in different scenarios to kind of act out certain things. And then also meditation, thinking about an action plan before you get into conflicts. So one of my biggest struggles is conflict resolution. And that's when a lot of these emotions aren't channeled in the right direction. My conflict resolution skills are it's difficult. I don't like conflict. So kind of having an action plan before I get into a conflict. If me and my lady got into an argument, or if my wife got into an argument, and I know I'm going to talk to her later on tonight about that very argument, we're going to sit down and talk, actually develop an action plan saying, here's 3 or 4 steps that I'm going to do prior to actually engaging with my wife when we have this sit down and talk. So those are a couple things I can do to kind of, really channel my emotions in a different direction.
Yeah, and listen, I think all of those are excellent. And one of the things, if you have difficulty with that plan, like therapy definitely can help you. A good therapist can definitely help you with that. Those are the types of things that I've helped people with in the past, and especially when it comes to anger, is recognizing what those specific triggers are, what your early warning signs are, like what you do when you're getting mad, and then not only that, when you get to that early warning signs, or when you see that trigger is there, what to do then, right? And oftentimes, a lot of it has to do with once you know those things, you can slow everything down. You know when to disengage because you're getting mad or frustrated, but you can always come back. Like, men can be avoidant for months, but it's okay to be avoidant temporarily, because sometimes it's not the time. Let's be avoidant temporarily. We'll come back later, and then we'll get into this conversation. And that helps. And then after a while, once you've done that for a while, you know your early warning signs, you know your triggers, the things that make you mad, she knows hers, then you can come back. Then it just becomes second nature. So it may not even bother you as much. But over time of doing that, you know what I mean? It slows things down for you. The worst thing about anger is reacting on your first instinct. Your first instinct sometimes can be the wrong one. And when it is, it can be catastrophic in terms of saying things or doing things that you didn't mean. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, Julio in the chat, he stated it's important to be around other men where expressing your emotions are considered normal. That's definitely that's one of the reasons why we started this. Like, Moriel is one of the few guys that I could actually speak with in reference to like my personal emotions outside of a few of my fraternity brothers. Like, and honest, it's hard for me to say, like, majority of the people that I grew up with, that I've been around from like childhood, my childhood friends, my close family, I could never really express, like how I feel, like how I am feeling, or what's making me feel a certain way without making, oh, dang, Jammers, oh man, you soft now, bro. What happened to you? Like, you used to be, come on, dog, like, come on, like, and it's just to a point where I don't want to hear that anymore. Like, I just want to be able to express myself, go about my day, and still like feel as though I'm a man. Like, I don't want, to be questioning my own manhood at times when I'm around certain people. So
absolutely. So it's funny, like, before I had the technical difficulties, I'm not going to put any of the pictures, the visuals back up, just because I finally got my computer back working. It wasn't working right. So let me say this. I wasn't going to talk about anger. I had a visual, but I'm not going to put it up, just so I can make sure that this computer is good. But anger is a secondary emotion, right? Now, what does that mean? It means that anger essentially is not usually, sometimes it is, but the first emotion that you experience before you actually get mad. And I'll give you an example of that. Somebody who gets fired, right? They get let go. They get called in the office. They get fired. They snap, right? Oftentimes, there's another emotion before the anger. So that person who got fired could have been feeling embarrassed because they got fired. Now they got to walk out in front of everybody. Embarrassment. Could have been feeling ashamed, right? Could have been feeling anxiety about their future. But all these different emotions that happen, the sadness, they oftentimes happen before you actually get mad. I don't know if you can remember. I can remember being a kid, and if you walk down the street and your sneaker was beat, or you didn't have, your haircut was messed up, or kids would make fun of you. So I can remember getting mad and wanting to fight and getting right, and I'm angry. But really, before the anger came, the shame, right? The humiliation, the embarrassment from people talking about you. So once that happens, now I want to bring people to my level, right? So now I want to fight because that'll make me feel better, right? Like, okay, my haircut's messed up, but now we fought. Now I punch in the face, and I feel better. And that's literally, if you really look at violence in the street, is really kind of, some of it is almost that simple, right? Because even if whether you're fighting for territory or somebody embarrasses the other person on social media, right? It comes down to emotions that aren't being dealt with. A lot of it comes down to emotions that aren't being dealt with, including shame, including embarrassment, right? Including frustration, humiliation. And then when the person has those emotions, they don't deal with it. Now kids are impulsive. They get to that point, boom, now I'm angry. Now when I'm angry, I'm going to follow my first inkling, which is whatever that emotion is, I'm going to resolve it. I can resolve my humiliation by embarrassing you, right? With this violence. I can resolve my sadness, right? I'll feel better once I shoot you, right? That's kind of what happens in people, and something that really we can resolve some of it by teaching people and helping people actually deal with their emotions.
Yeah, chime in.
I'm sorry.
I was saying, may I chime in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
So I'm hearing the anger and what the gentleman was saying earlier. What I found very important is listening, the ability to willing or empathizing with the person, like even if it's your wife or your colleagues before you get to that point of anger. And I think that's something that a lot of us are challenged with, the actual ability to actively listen, to be empathetic, to hear what someone is saying, not to agree with, but to at least be present at that time. And I find that works to bring down a lot of the emotions. Results on anger, because a lot of times there's a hidden message in everybody's conversation, but here now in this day, people are rushing so much that they're not even hearing what someone is saying because they already got all this noise in their selves.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to bring it out in reference to, that empathetic ability to hear, especially when it comes to your spouse. Because, as I know early on, I was like, I just want to solve the problem. But now I've learned to listen. And I'm really not there to solve the problem. I'm just there to listen to what's being said. And I find a lot more comes out of it. And she solves the problem. Or even my colleagues, they just wanted someone to hear them. And I found like I had to say much, but just, repeat or be present and help them hear what they were saying themselves. I find that brings down an angry meeting because people aren't being heard.
Yep. That's that fixer's reflex that you rush to fix everything. And you're right. Oftentimes in relationships, women want to be validated, and they want to know that you heard them. They want to that you empathize with them. They don't necessarily want you to fix it. And you have to. I think everybody's relationship is different, so that's something that you would have to differentiate between. But it's definitely that was a good point.
I actually agree with Bashan. He was like, when we're frustrated or angry, we listen to respond. In the past, I'm not gonna lie, I not to listen to respond, but I would use a different word. I would listen to react. Based on what you would say to me or how you would say it, I would react in a manner that I know is like ridiculous. But listening is very key. Like being able to sit down and have a conversation and listen. I definitely agree with that, Kevin.
Yeah. And let me say this about in terms of listening and being prepared to listen. Depending on what it is, sometimes you got to walk away and come back. Because when tempers are a little too hot, it's better to walk away and come back so that you don't say anything in a relationship or a marriage that, could be harmful for later. So, sometimes you got to do that. And I know I've gotten good at that over the years, walking away and then coming back later and saying, hey, listen, because sometimes you can't take things back and people always remember that. And really, a lot of people, we kind of live in a society where there's a lot of trauma. A lot of people have trauma and are oftentimes in a defensive state regularly. So, when you have that trauma and it's unresolved, when somebody does something, you're always ready to go on the defensive. You're always ready to go on the attack instead of, as my man Kevin Patterson said, listening, right? Instead of listening, instead of taking your time, instead of slowing it down. And that's why it's important, what I was saying earlier, when the other gentleman was talking about understanding your early warning signs, understanding your triggers, right? And understanding those things. And then that helps you to slow everything down because you go, oh, wait a minute, this could potentially trigger me, right? Then you know that your early warning sign is that my muscles tense up or my brow, right? My eyes get wide or they got that brow, whatever that is, whatever it looks like for you. And now I know, okay, I'm starting to get frustrated. Hey, give me a minute. Let me go over here and cool down and then we'll come back and we'll talk later.
I find it interesting with the listening and the anger and the signs that you speak about. So I notice I work with a lot of some people. One thing I tell them, like, did you hear what the person was saying before you got angry and stormed off? You know, do you want this job? Do you still want to work here? So you may want to listen. And I find it stronger or harder, more challenging with younger people who've already had an opinion to what I'm going to do and what's not going to shame me. In reference that it has nothing to do with shame. It's about sometimes just doing the job with someone else's description.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think younger people though, they always work best alone. Number one, alone. You pull them out the crowd. Sometimes you get a better response than when they're in the crowd. And then, you know, if you can point those things out, once you get that better response and you build that relationship, that's when it's easier to speak with them. You know, when you initially speak with them, you know, I mean, it's in my career, I've been cussed out by kids who later on, after we got through that, them cussing at me, you know what I mean, and me talking to them and having to give them, you know, some type of consequence for that. And then once we got past that, we were good. We were good on many of occasions, you know. But they're going to test you at first usually, and then, you know, they're still going to have their days sometimes. They're still going to have their days, but if they learn those things about themselves and they can slow things down, and you know, with grown men, like I said, I've had clients who come in and they've learned how to do this, and they're like, "Well, I'm thinking through it." Once you learn how to think through it for a while and practice it, it becomes muscle memory. Then you got it, you know, and you're running with it, because you just got to be aware that anger, it's really more of a buildup. Even for somebody that looks like they're going 0 to 60, it's more of a buildup. And what I mean by that, it might be a 5-second buildup, but there's other emotions that are going, and now you're responding before you even thought about it.
I have a question for you. So I did hear you speak on sometimes it's best to walk away, you know, from a heated situation to try to calm down, then come back and speak on like whatever was going on. What if like within a relationship, like you have a spouse or a significant other who doesn't understand that you need that time to walk away. They assume that you're walking away from the issue, not the moment. So like, what would you recommend in reference to that?
I mean, I think clear communication, and I think the best time to have that communication is like when you're not mad. Like say, hey, listen, I know you was mad at me last night or last time we argued, but I need you to understand. When I'm mad, I'm going to walk away. This is what I'm going to say to you. I'm going to walk away, and I will come back, and we'll finish the conversation later. You know, I think you got to set those protocols while you're not mad, where she can understand it. Now, here's the thing. It's funny because I have a client like that, and he said to me, who had this exact situation. He said to me, you know, well, she doesn't understand and she doesn't want to. And you know, if you know that you need that, and that's a need for you, and she can't do that, then you're going to have to make a decision. You know what I mean? And you might have to stress that it's a need for you, because you have to, you know, all your needs in a relationship have to mesh. So your needs need to meet with her needs. You know, you need to meet her needs, she needs to meet your needs, and they got to fit. It has to fit like a puzzle. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. So I think that's something that that needs to be a discussion when you're not heated. When you're not heated, you can say, I mean, when you're heated, yeah, you can say, hey, listen, I need a minute, I'll come back and talk to you. But it's better if you set those protocols and those rules when you're not mad, before an argument ever happens.
I'm sorry. We got another comment in the chat. Julio, he said that sometimes women are dealing with their own daddy issues and taking it out on us. I do agree with that at sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would not. I agree sometimes that does happen. I know. I mean, there's a lot of different situations, and you know, I think with that, you know, that's another conversation you got to have with her, and y'all got to work something out. I think with anything, with any type of conflict, it's always best like talk about it, but then have some action steps. If that makes sense, talk about it and action steps. If you don't even get action steps out of these conversations, then they're just going to keep repeating themselves, and they're going to do it at the same intensity. Like at a minimum, if you know that certain things are going to come up, like maybe daddy issues, at least if you talk about it and y'all agree, and y'all can agree on a couple things that she's going to do, you know, when she feels like that, then that's better. You know what I mean? Things that both of y'all can agree.
Sean, a problem I run into is empathizing with someone when I don't agree with, or understand their point of view regarding an issue.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're in a relationship, then or a marriage, then you got to either figure out how to be able to validate some things. And some things, validation is, listen, I understand the way you feel. I disagree. We agree to disagree, and you go about your business. You know what I mean? Sometimes some things you're going to agree to disagree, because there's nobody on the earth that you're going to agree 100% of the time. So that might be what it is. But if it's something that's like foundational, I guess, like the way you raise kids, your financial goals, something that whatever you find to be highly important, your spiritual goals, how you're living, conflict, if something foundational, then you may or may not, y'all may have to figure something out, or, and that something out might be that maybe you don't belong together, or it could be that there's a way you can work it out. It just depends. But I think, again, those conversations, hopefully when you're not mad and you can figure it out, action steps that you can take. Yeah, but I get it. Sometimes you gotta agree, disagree too. You gotta just say, listen, I'm not disrespecting you. I respect your opinion. I just disagree.
I want to check my pronunciation of the name. I'm sorry if I mess it up. Hiram or Hiram states that one of his non-negotiables is won't date her unless she has a therapist.
I hear you. Listen, that's a tough. I listen. That's a tough non-negotiable. Yeah. That's tough. Listen, because I don't know if they're ready to disclose, man.
Yeah. Julio also stated, in the heat of the moment, women don't believe in there being lines they don't cross. Men understand there are lines we don't cross in the heat of the moment. We definitely do.
Yeah, I get it, man. I mean, listen. So let me say this too about escalating arguments. The key to stopping escalating arguments is stopping them before they escalate. Because once you get to that point where it's escalated, it's hard to get it under control again unless you just disengage, right? Get out of there. So really you want to see, usually there's a pattern to these things. There's a pattern to how people argue, right? So if you know, and let me go back, because somebody said earlier that women study. They do. But men usually study women too, though, right? Usually so if you're studying her, if you know your significant other, then you know when they want to argue. So this is where you want to start to cut off the escalation. When you see things escalate, you can always exit before it escalates and say, hey, well, let's come back to this escalating, right? And that's part of knowing your triggers, part of knowing your early warning signs, and also part of knowing her, right? And once you do that, now when you come back, she's going to know that, okay, I can't escalate because he's going to leave. Does that make sense? Like if you're consistent, you're like, listen, you're escalating. Let's talk about this later. I can't do this. Now I come back. She escalates again. Listen, you're escalating. I leave. I gotta go. And it might only be like 30 minutes, an hour break, right, before you come back because everything's cool. I don't know. However long it is looks for you. It might be the next day. It might be 2 hours. But if she sees you're doing that consistently, then she's going to know I got to change something that I'm doing, because every time I get mad, he walks off. You know what I mean? And you can just say, listen, I want to work things out, but I don't want to yell, scream, because that doesn't do anything. We don't accomplish anything. So, I mean, it's just one of those things.
I agree. Check the waiting room when you get a chance.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. I see some people in there in the middle.
We have Coach G stated, I have non-negotiables as well. Mm-hmm. You have to have some form of authority in her life, meaning something she respects other than herself, God, dad, stepdad, therapist, etc. When she starts to act like it's this doesn't matter, I'm out. Peace.
Yeah, listen, and I get it. I mean, that makes sense though. And one of the things, if you do have that in your life and somebody doesn't, then you're probably gonna be heading in two different directions.
Sean made a powerful statement. I appreciate the normalization of therapy. It's becoming less taboo to have a therapist now. Yeah, definitely. I'm a huge proponent of therapy.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that it may have been normal in mainstream society, but not so much in minority communities, not so much, and with people of color, definitely. I mean, that's, I remember having kids and treating kids back in the day, and they were like, I don't need therapy. I ain't crazy. Like, having therapy doesn't mean you're crazy. And honestly, and one of the best practices for therapists is to have therapy, is to do therapy with somebody else. That's one of the best practices because you're taking on everybody else's issues. So it's good for you to go ahead and get therapy as well. So it has nothing to do with crazy. Most people that come to therapy, they're going through a period of time and they need a little bit of help adjusting to that period of time. And sometimes it's just the way they think about it. The therapist can help you with that. So
Give it to God. Travis says, or the famous quote we hear in the black community, give it to God.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I get it. But I think that can be part of your process of processing your emotions, right?
Yeah.
Because listen, so this is what I'll say about that. I've been a Christian all my life, right? So part of my process of processing things when things happen is I go inside, pray about it, I think about it, I think about how I'm thinking about it, right? And why I'm frustrated. And then I seek feedback from those who I trust, right? So I might call my pops, some close friends, talk to my wife, and that, right? But then eventually, after I process it, I do let it go. I do pray and I let it go, right? But that's my process, right? And sometimes, like, I'm not avoiding of it. I try to figure it out and what I'm going to do moving forward, right? And how I'm going to handle it, right? And then sometimes with thoughts, they creep back. So you got to have things that you do, even on a regular, man, for your own mental health that help you. And that might be like workouts, exercise. It might be meeting up with your boys and talking about stuff, talking to people you trust. Like, part of it, a big part of what you need to do is acknowledgement. And with acknowledgement and awareness, right? Being aware of the fact that you're frustrated, the fact that you're stressed, being aware of and acknowledging that you are stressed and that you are feeling some type of way, It's so funny because I say feeling some type of way, and I've heard that like not a million times, but when people say, hey, I'm feeling some type of way, it's like I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling angry, but they say some type of way instead of identifying that specific emotion. And that's all right, I know what they mean, but then I got to ask, hey, so what type of way you feeling? You know what I mean? I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling embarrassed, it's okay to say those words, and it's okay to feel like that because people have felt like that on many of occasions, including people who you would never think thought like that. There's people who are mega successful that had doubts, that had depression, that had, that had negative thoughts about themselves. And, everybody has it. You fight it, you process it, you deal with it, and then you get over it. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of how you do it. Anything else on there, Jamar?
Yeah, I just was scrolling up. What are your thoughts about when engaging in conflict situations? There are times when your significant other is expressing herself and comes across you do this and you do that. It comes across as attacking, and then we get defensive. We then get ridiculed because we're defensive. That's from Bashan.
Yeah, I mean, so again, there are certain dynamics to every relationship, right? And as far as like us becoming defensive, sometimes we do become defensive. I become defensive sometimes. It's like you find yourself explaining too much, right? We're human beings. So it's about awareness, right? And it's about recognizing the pattern of your arguments. Like one thing I do, and I probably do it too much, I might be accused of being a bit of an egghead because I look at everything and I start analyzing, right? But I reflecting on conversations that you had, seeing, okay, what was the outcome of that conversation? What do I think she was trying to obtain in that conversation? How did I do? Why was I mad? What was it? And when you do that, sometimes you learn from it. So if you feel like she's trying to make you defensive, then maybe you change the way that you respond. Sometimes what people don't realize, they're so busy trying to change the other person that if you change your response, the other person instantly automatically changes anyway. So if somebody's trying to press my buttons, but I refuse to give them the response, right? I look at them with a flat look and I give them a flat response. And now they're like, oh, like, what the hell? Like, he didn't give me the response I wanted. Yeah. And they know I'm not going to give them that response. They're going to stop trying to push my button. Because that's what, you know what I mean? So if you feel like somebody is pushing your buttons and trying to make you defensive, then give them a different response. Don't give them the response they want. You know, I mean, it's funny, but it really works. And it took me, to be honest, as a kid, years of getting angry to learn that. That, you know, if you don't give people the response, well, some people used to press my buttons just to piss me off. And then when I get in trouble for being mad, you know, I'm throwing stuff, I'm ready to fight and all this, then they're laughing, right? So it's just a lesson to learn that sometimes the way you respond to people will change their actions as well, without you ever having to do anything else. And usually that means not giving them definitely not the anger. Anger hardly will ever get you the outcome you want, you know, unless you're on the street and that's something different. But in a relationship, it's not going to give you the outcome.
Yeah. Even being in the street, the outcome, that's going to give you the outcome you think you wanted at that time. But
that's true.
When those
but it's going to be consequences.
Yeah,
it's better to use so
it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Yo, I got a question. Just popped in my head. Like, this is towards everybody in here. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on like help? Like, as far as like, you know, being the dominant, the masculine person. Like, when it comes to asking or you needing help but not wanting to, you know, mention it, or if somebody's offering help and you turning it down, knowing that you need help, whether it be financial, with anything in general, just in referencing help. Anybody
real quick, I think for those that topic specifically is, I think that's a learned behavior. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's saying, it's something that comes from just the stereotypical of manhood and what men should be, right? And that's not the case. You know what I mean? So when it comes to that, you got to have people that in your circle that you trust, or people that you can open up to and talk to and kind of, you know, get the advice or whatever you need. You know, it just comes with time. Like everybody here has grown and, you know, been through things, and we're all at the space now where you're finally comfortable with talking about different things. So it just comes with time, you know what I mean, and growing. So that's my piece on it.
I firmly agree with that brother that just stated what he mentioned regarding just maturity. I think that's a maturity aspect of being able to swallow your pride. You know, if somebody's offering help and you masculinity, that macho, no, I don't need it or whatever, and it could be anything. It could be any type of help. I think the importance is recognizing where you are in your life and just having that maturity level and saying, you know what, the outcome is going to benefit me. You know what I mean? In the long run, it's not about what everybody else perceives. It's not about what the audience is, how they looking at you, your boys is looking at you. Because anybody that's really in your corner, they're going to appreciate you being transparent, being open, and being honest with yourself to become a better man. So, you know, when you get to a certain level in your life, you don't care about all that noise and trying to look like this and you trying to look like that. Because at the end of the day, the wave is becoming a better person. And I think the whole wave of coming together as brothers has really risen. Maybe 10 years ago, it was like, oh, that's whack, that's corny, that's this. A lot of stereotypes behind that. But now it's about building, man. It's about togetherness. It's about fellowship. Iron sharpening iron, man. That's really the cool wave, and that's just really what's beneficial in this world today. That's my take on that, on your question, Jeremy.
Yes, I'm gonna have to agree on that also. It's about coming together. I think at this point in life, you know, if someone comes into your world and they're willing to help, I think it's very helpful that you accept that. You know, a lot of times it is a timing. And if the timing's right, that person is going to be there. And I think a lot of times what gets in our way is our pride. And, you know, that old narrative, it takes a village. Well, back in the day, it was a village of men that used to be available for you, that used to be on the corner that could provide some advice. We don't have that right now. So now we have to use this platform here to connect, because I don't know it all. And I know your experience, your different walks of life is going to bring another level of awareness. I learned early on that if I'm the smartest one in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Right. That's deep. MNQ, you got your hand up? MNQ. Todd, did you want to speak? Yeah, okay, you can go ahead and speak. You got your hand up. You can come off mute and speak.
I'll speak if he doesn't have opportunity. This is Javon. I think that what help has been redefined for the man. Being a divorcee and a father of 3 kids, I had to get help in areas that I never even imagined that I would need help in. Like, a case in point, it was like taboo, at least where I'm from, to go to court to get help. You don't go to no court. You go fight in the street, or you gonna kick the door down and tell them what kind of man you are, and she better not play with you. But to forums like this, and spaces like this, and mature men sharing information for help, I had to redefine what help looks like and humble myself in different ways to say, you know what, the type of help I need now is totally different. It's defined different, and it looks different than it did even for my father and my brothers that preceded my experiences. So it's like for me, it's like 2 sides to it. Is for one, I had to define or redefine what kind of help I needed, and 2, where that help was going to come from and who I was willing to listen to. And then some of that help in the spaces, people did not look like me. Like, one of my therapists is white, and I was like, I asked for that mainly because I really wanted to open my horizon and look at where I could get help. But help is totally different, than it was, at least when I was younger. That's my 3 cents.
Hey, I just want to chime in real quick. So I agree with all of what the brothers have been saying. With help, I would just add in that it's a matter of knowing the spirit of the person that is offering the help. If you know that they somebody that's gonna hold it over your head later on, then you might not want to accept that help. So
Right.
if you know that they got a good vibe, they in your circle, they try to build just like you trying to build, then that's something that you can put your pride aside and accept that help from that brother, so that at some point you might turn around and help him at some point. So if everybody's putting out that energy, everybody trying to build, then it's good. But if somebody's coming with the wrong energy, then that's not somebody that you want to accept help from.
Yeah,
That's fact.
That's definitely that's definitely a good point. Travis, you got your hand up?
Yes, sir. Josh, that was amazing. I totally agree. That's why, it took me a long time to learn how to accept help, because my thing is I always feel the spirit of the person. But at the same time, I will make the mistake of ignoring the red flags by expecting the good out that person, and they end up throwing it in my face. So for the longest, I never accepted help. And been going to therapy for over 15 years. And I would say that didn't start until I was in the military, getting therapists and things of that nature. They were all white. They didn't have the cultural competency to deal with Black men. So it took me a long time to find, what help do I need? And also learning about psychology, knowing what traumas and triggers that I have, to the fact that before I look for a therapist, I ask them what their credentials are. And if you're not trained in racialized trauma or certain things of that nature, you're not going to be my therapist, even, if they come in with a good light. Because a year ago, I had a new therapist from the VA, and young lady, white young lady with her psych D, wanted to get a foot in the door. I gave her pretty much a week. I'm like, if we're not making no progress, it's not going to work out. So I would just say this to say that, we really got to interrogate what kind of help do we really need, because we don't have I'm not going to say we all don't, but some of us really don't know what are the components of therapy and mental health and things of that we really need. So I would say really figure out what do we need to heal from and those traumas, and, just sitting in it. And once we have pretty much a resume of what we want to heal from, find that in the therapist.
That's a strong comment.
Yeah, let me just comment on that too, though. What Travis was saying, I had an old supervisor back in the day, right? Who said to me, therapists are like shoes. Her advice was, you find one that fits. Like, I think with therapy, you have to, you definitely, like, I get a lot of people, right? Me being a Black male, one of the few Black males, like, I have people call me all the time, and they want a Black male therapist. There's a lot of times, mostly men who are moms who want me to work with their sons. But I also, every now and then, I'll get a white male, or I'll get a woman who just wants a male therapist, Black male therapist, right? And The thing that I'll say is, no, I agree. You have to find somebody who fits you, who knows what they're doing. So looking at their experience is definitely one of the things that you want to do. You know, because even just because the person's Black doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be able to help you, right? There's a ton of therapists of various colors, but not many Black males. So that's one of the reasons that I realized when I started doing private practice recently, getting back into the actual mental health side of it and not just running programs. I noticed that my clientele just went shot up quickly. And I think one of the things that you got to do, if you feel like there's not, it really, to be honest, if I'm being totally blunt, from my opinion of therapists, I think it is kind of a crapshoot, especially for a Black person, because your experiences are so different. And I'm telling you, I know what they teach for cultural competence. And a lot of it is just for lack of a better word, it's just these little nuanced things that are static on paper. But they don't realize that all Black people aren't the same. You know what I mean? You can't treat any one group just as the same. You know what I mean? So what happens is you have people, and I know some of us have had this experience where you go somewhere and they automatically assume you live in a certain area. They assume you're making a certain amount of money. They assume you have a certain amount of education. Sometimes you can end up with that with a therapist, right? You end up with somebody who doesn't really understand that, oh, you're actually an educated Black person, not just, you know what I mean? And then there's the code switching that you have to do for work. But when you go into therapy, some people don't want to code switch. They go in therapy, they want to talk how they talk wherever they're at. I don't talk the same at work as I do when I'm just sitting around talking to my brother, or I'm just sitting around talking to some friends, right? So they don't want to have to be an interpreter of, the language. But you also need somebody who knows what they're doing, especially with trauma. You need somebody who is going to be able to help you really get through that, because those trauma echoes, as they happen in our life, they really affect our behavior, they affect our well-being, and they can cut your life short. And as I showed y'all earlier with the actual life expectancy of Black men being the lowest in the nation, right? 68.3 years, you know what I mean, is the life expectancy, which, some of us beat it, but, too many of us don't. So, it's just something to look out for. So definitely, if you try therapy, give it a good face effort, give it a couple sessions. And if it don't work for you, don't be afraid to change. And I tell people that who even choose me, listen, you can come give me a try. If you feel like it ain't working, then, by all means.
You got you check the waiting room. Also got a comment from Andre. He said, I have to run out. I just wanted to say this was great, fellas. I honestly never been part of a fellowship like this with Black men expressing themselves. Jamar, this is a great thing. I hope you continue to hold these. I will get with you later. Enjoy y'all evening, everyone. Yeah, you're welcome.
Let me just run over a couple of things real quick, Jamar. This is the last piece that I was going to just speak on, and then whatever questions people have or comments or whatever. But I was just going to talk about just briefly when we're flooded with emotion, right? The unhealthy versus the healthy responses, right? We talked about how more men abuse drugs and use alcohol more often than cool. And we also talked about the avoidance. We talked about the aggression, right? But the healthy responses, you know what I mean? You always got it. And I heard everybody talk about this a little bit too. Using those supports, man. The people you trust. Keyword being trust. And I'm going to tell you, I've run into people who say, I don't really trust anybody. So that's why I'm in counseling. You know what I mean? I don't trust anybody. And I get that too. You know what I mean? I understand it. So in some ways I live with it, in some ways I don't. I've been blessed enough to have my dad I trust with almost everything. Not everything, almost everything, right? I know I can call him if something's going on. I got a wife that's trustworthy. I got a couple other friends. But everybody doesn't have it. Sometimes people are like, listen, I need somebody to talk to. So using those supports, whatever that looks like for you, right? Acknowledgement and awareness. Meaning that you got to just acknowledge that you're feeling some type of way, not ignore it. Not ignore it until you get so mad that you're punching the car window or that you cussing somebody out, that you're ready to fight somebody. Because that's all that's going to happen if you ignore it, right? Something bad, something that your anger is going to come out the wrong way, essentially. And awareness, being aware of it, right? Recognizing when you're waking up with a good day and having a good day and when you're not. Then there's also the processing of the emotions. So I just came up with 4 questions that you can ask yourself when you feel like you know, are feeling some type of way and you want to know why. So the first one is, why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling this way? Like, just to have that conversation in your head. Like, I do a lot of inner dialogue stuff. Why am I feeling this way? And to really look at it. Like, you may not even understand it, and that's okay. But that's when you go get feedback if you don't understand. Like, I don't know why I feel this way. You know what I mean? And then, am I thinking about this the right way? How we think about things affects how we feel. What we think about, our bodies are so intertwined, it's crazy. When we have depression and we're down, our body hurts. Our body can hurt. We can have chest aches, headaches. Our energy could be affected all over what we think, and now it makes us feel down, right? Maybe I lost a tournament, and because I lost the tournament, you know, I feel down. I feel like a loser, right? Now I'm starting to get chest aches and headaches. I don't have energy. I'm lethargic. I'm sleeping till noon, right? That all started here in the brain and how I was thinking, right? So am I thinking about this the right way? What can I do to resolve my emotions? You know what I mean? What can I do to resolve them? And you may not have the answer to that, but that's when you can seek some feedback from trusted people. And then the last question is, do I need help? Do I need help? And seek the help that you need. Everybody may not need a therapist, but you may need to go talk to someone. But I'm gonna tell you this, the thing that I realize about people, right, especially Black people who I'm around, you know, grew up around all my life, obviously, right, being a member of the group, is that we're traumagenic at times. You know, everybody has these traumas that affect us. And if we don't deal with them, then they're going to affect our relationships. They're going to affect the way we raise our kids. They're going to affect the things we're able to do, the happiness we're able to feel. So we just got to be able to deal with it. And the last comment I'll leave you with is I don't know how, I remember going to, when I was a kid, I wasn't a kid. I was working for Project State Free. I don't know if y'all remember Project State Free, but I was a youth and family interventionist. I don't know what year was that. It was probably like 99 or something. And we took the kids to Smyrna prison. And I remember one of the guys said, and he was in jail for life for murder. And he said, I would have rather killed somebody than tell somebody how I was hurting. And he did kill somebody, and he was in jail for life. That's the type of emotional mismanagement that we got to change. We got to change, you know? So if we can, you know what I mean? If these groups can facilitate that, and we can talk to younger men and do things like that, then that would be very helpful to the whole community, because that's the type of emotional management. Anger is oftentimes more accepted than sadness, more accepted than depression, more accepted than crying. We'd rather be angry. Because it's tough. It's tough. We can be angry. We're tough guys. So that's just something else to think about. You know, it's just that, you know, those questions, and then having that, you know, the positive response. Because life, it's not always easy. Handling emotions ain't always easy either. So just something to remember.
Definitely. Got someone in the chat that said they'd like to take the time to discuss how his organization can use our help in the community. Go ahead, Doug. You can come off mute. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. How are you all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. And my apologies for jumping on so late, but my name is Purge Benjamin. Page by some, Purge by others. This time last year, I started a podcast around mental health awareness, in lack of a better term, trying to make the conversation around mental health sexy, normal, so that it no longer has a negative stigma around it. Since then, we've had 2 seasons. We just concluded our second season this past month, and we had raging reviews from guests, panelists, and our audience members. So we decided to take this opportunity to expand it to a nonprofit organization where we want to continue to do more for our community, other than just having a conversation. So part of what we're trying to do is build a cohort of people that are willing to kind of work together to support our communities. One of our things that we discuss on our show is protecting our peace. As you all know, there are multiple sides of us that we need to kind of cultivate and take care of so that we can maintain the better part of ourselves. And so part of what we're trying to do is build a cohort of providers, from nutritionists to chefs that cook natural meals, to yoga instructors, to therapists, to behavioral therapists, and the such that once we identify these individuals, we want to be able to refer them to the members within our community. As myself and my co-hosts were trying to find providers for ourselves, we found that it was difficult to find therapy from a person from our community. And then two, we weren't necessarily sure on how to find those therapists. As you know, today there's a plethora of different avenues now that you can find those resources, but it wasn't as prevalent. Also, we're trying to make sure we remove the stigma crazy around mental health, right? It's all about making sure that we provide our community with the right messaging. Now, our show isn't about professionals coming on and confessing their skills and personalities. It's about opening up the conversation. We create a safe space so that people can have the conversations around the difficult things that impact our community. For example, last season we had a conversation about praying it away. Our community, as religious as we can be, tend to fray away from reaching out to outside of the church help, right? Where we had a conversation around, does the church provide counseling sessions? I know there are some progressive organizations, churches out there today that does that, but that hasn't always been the case. We had conversation about sexual assault. We had conversation about pride. We had conversations around people taking care of their parents. How do these things impact our community? And so what we tried to do is continue to expand the conversation to topics that impact our community. And the show is just the face of the organization. The goal here is to build a relationship with individuals like you all that are experts in your fields and that can help provide information, not disinformation, so that our community is more informed on how they can go about finding the resources that they need to be able to support themselves and their family. So with that being said, I dropped a link to Cheese on My Cracker. So the name of the show is Getting My Cheese Back on My Cracker. For anybody that's aware, it's really a phrase around trying to get myself back together. And the only way we can get that back together is having the right resources in order to be able to do that for ourselves. Ultimately, our goal is to be able to develop a cohort of professionals that can provide services from financial support, from fitness to nutrition, to psychotherapy, to just counseling, to whatever it is that we need to make the family whole or to make an individual feel as though that they are supported. Because one of the things that we all had growing up was a village. And the biggest thing that we believe is that it takes a village for us all to succeed and to become whole. And so that our peace can be together and so that we can be the best people that we can be for our community. So with that being said, I'm not trying to hold you guys up for too much longer, but I do thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak. If you guys have any questions, I am definitely here to answer them.
We can link up so we can make it happen, dog.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Yes, I don't have anything else. Unless somebody else got a comment or a question.
Anybody got any comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to chime. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. This is really a good forum. And if you guys continue it, I'll be here. This is really good.
We definitely.
This is really good. This is something that I talked to you about for years.
Yeah.
Doing this.
Definitely. We're gonna try to do it like every month.
Yeah.
That works. That works.
And here's the other thing, right? So if anybody's interested in just any type of bi-weekly or weekly men's group, you know what I mean, like support group, psychosocial or counseling, then also, you know what I mean, get with Jamar or get with me and we can kind of do that. So I'm going to put my link, my website in the link in there as well, usualpolitics.com, because I come out with a number of different articles just on mental health and things that you can do for your mental health, as well as other community issues. So, you know what I mean? I'm also on Facebook, so just look me up on Facebook. It's Politics as Usual, but it's usualpolitics.com is the website. And I think you can see the logo on my name, the host name on there. So, you know, if you check that out, you'll see you might get some useful resources as well off of the website.
Yeah, Travis also wanted to speak.
Yes, gentlemen, I'm gonna make it quick. This has been pretty awesome, but I would like to see this materialize in the future into, you know, a men's spiritual retreat, because I have a lot of background in travel and tourism, and you know, we can find some safe spaces outside the United States or within the United States where we can do these things and just be in a holistic environment together.
Yeah, that's definitely deep. I'm like, you know, like I said, it was our first one. Gonna try to take some baby steps, but that is like, I would appreciate if you you know, kept in touch and still you know, join like the following ones to come, and that way we can build on there as we get our stuff together for the most part. But that is a good idea.
And I wanted to add to that. I host a travel page as well as the mental health piece, and I have an amazing travel planner who is planning my my wedding trip to Morocco, over 50 plus people. So I definitely can provide those resources for you as well if that's something that the community is interested in. I think, you know, I travel as a form of therapy as well. So you know, as a person who cares for my dad, getting out of that space sometimes helps. And I think given what the last year and some change has impacted us all, a change of scenery would definitely help. And this travel planner makes it affordable, right? The biggest thing is making sure that it's a reliable person, as well as making it such that it's affordable over time, so that people don't have to worry about dropping a load of money all at once. So just something to keep in mind.
So by the way, this video will be on the website as well. So if you want to go back and look at any part of it, if you came on late, you'll be able to check it out. So I just gotta, once I trim it, then we'll drop it on there.
And I'll be sure to let everybody know you know, when it's out.
Okay.
All right. Once again, definitely want to thank y'all for coming out. Everybody else gave their little spill. You know, y'all can find me on Facebook at Jammers Taylor, Jammers, or Instagram, Twitter at Jammers302. That's Jammers302. But you know, that I'm trying to go by Jamar now, but it is what it is. My LinkedIn is Jamar Taylor, so yeah.
It's hard to break the old name. I'm working on that as well. So I feel your pain, brother.
All right. But yeah, I am grown, right? I know, man. It's crazy, but yeah, that's man. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight, man. Yo, I was definitely, man. I'm happy to see a lot of people. I haven't seen a lot of people since college. A couple of my frat brothers popped up on here. Yo, that was real cool, man. Yeah. A lot of people I met on LinkedIn. Definitely good to see everybody come out and
absolutely. So we'll come up with the next flyer probably in a week or two. Try to get something else for September.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
Have a good one.